Success in business isn't about avoiding obstacles, it's about knowing how to push through them. And in this episode, we're diving into the proven strategies for scaling, overcoming rejection, and leveraging your business and franchising to fuel success. So, if you've ever faced setbacks in business, which of course, if you're in business, you have, this is the right episode.
Welcome to Fordify Live with your host, Saeks.
Today, I'm joined by Charles Bonfiglio. He's the CEO and franchise founder of Tint World. Now, he started with a dream, he faced rejection, and he turned his vision into an international franchise with over 250 locations worldwide. But today isn't just about his story, it's about the lessons that you learn along the way to success. Charles, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about you, Tint World, and your journey.
Well, thank you for it. It's a pleasure to be here. And my journey starts as a teenager, and I had a dream to open up a car stereo shop and aftermarket accessories. And so I moved to Florida and tried to get that going. I just had a dream, and I went down there with a one-way airplane ticket with 2 suitcases to find my way. And I found a lot of dead ends in getting financing and also trying to get a lease. They just felt like it wasn't going to be a real business because it wasn't established.
Well, I know it's kind of like burning your boats, right? You left with no way back, and you turned a lot of no's that you received along the way. And so, think back to when you started. What was something that you wished you would have known that you know now because you're wiser back then that might have saved you some trouble or some heartache?
Geez, that's a tough one. I wish I would have known everything that I know now. It just would have went faster. But really, I really enjoyed the journey. I mean, I didn't, you talked about obstacles. I just looked at every obstacle as an opportunity to go around it, over it, under it, and how do I get to where I want to go? And one of the things that helped me get there was I found franchising. I didn't look for it. It found me. It was brought to me. I'm like, franchising, what's that? And a cousin of mine opened up a franchise in New Jersey. And when I spoke to him, he told me, that he opened this franchise. I'm like, franchise, what's that? And from that point, I decided, let me look into this. And then I found franchising that actually gave me some of the tools I need. They gave me a roadmap. They gave me ability to get financing, ability to help me get a lease. And that's how I really started my first venture.
Well, I know, for me as an entrepreneur, I had 17 different companies. 3 went 7 figures, 1 went 8 figures. And I've made so many mistakes along the way. I mean, I paid my tuition in bad decisions. And, I always tell our listeners, you can learn from your own experience or from other people's experience. And obviously that's why I have the show Fordify, is to share insights so we've already made the mistakes so you don't have to. Thinking about your group now, and you just share our listeners with some of the services that Tint World actually offers for those that might not be familiar with your brand.
Yeah, Tint World, it's a little bit, deceiving because hear the name Tint World and you think just window tint. And we do a whole lot more. We do window tinting, paint protection film on vehicles, vehicle wraps, car electronics, car audio, car and truck accessories, detailing, ceramic coating, and then that's done from the brick and mortar store. But we also do mobile services for homes and office buildings and boats and yachts, where we could do the same services on there as well.
So you've expanded the marketplace, you had a good concept, you franchised it. And in all my work with franchise brands, both big and small around the globe, I've found, Charles, that success really comes down to one of 3 things. First, it's our mindset. If they don't have their mindset dialed in, all the strategies and tactics in the world won't help. And then it comes down to the strategies. Well, that's one of the advantages of having a franchise is they give you the strategies and the roadmap to follow. But again, as a franchisee, you have to follow it. And then tactically, how do you take advantage of the local communities that you're in? Because like you just said, you had multiple channels of distribution and multiple ideal client profiles because you had marine, you had commercial, you had residential, you had cars, you had a lot of different things. And I'm just curious, when someone, if you think about the top successes in your franchise family, what is something that they do different than some of the people who may be struggling?
I think that they own it. They buy a system from us. They love the brand. You have to love the brand. If you're not loving what you're doing and the brand that you're building, how do you portray that to people? People see that you love what you do, and it attracts them. So whether it's employees or customers or other franchisees, even talking to a landlord or some of your vendors, if they see you love what you're doing, you're passionate about it, it'll come your way. And it can't be fake. It's got to be real. But the minute you try saying, "Well, I bought this franchise and it's because of this or because of that," it's all because of you. You bought this brand and you make the most of it. And I learned from when I was a franchisee before Tint World, I learned from my other franchisees. How do you do this and how do you do that? And then there's the couple of naysayer negative ones, and there's the ones that are really doing well. Focus on the ones that are doing well. Not all of them are going to want to disclose to you how well they're doing and why they're doing, but you'll find your niche in different people and what you can learn from them. All you have to do is learn one thing or two things now and then, and you put those into practice, and you're building a little repertoire of tools that you can build your business.
Yeah, I totally agree. Every time I get brought in for an annual conference for a franchise brand or a corporation in all outside of franchising, I always do this interview with their convention team where I always say, okay, what are the top challenges that are facing your group? And inevitably, it comes down around the same types of things. First, it's staffing. Some franchise brands have lots of business. They don't need more leads. They need the team to go out and facilitate it. And then others need more local marketing. But it always comes down to how do they find them? How do they attract? How do they engage? And it really comes down to creating a culture where they can be successful, especially if they're hiring people that maybe are on the minimum wage or lower end on their staff. How do they offer opportunities for growth and learning so that people want to come to work for them? So you have the staffing challenge, then you have the changes in buyer behaviors because the way people make decisions are different. And I know with what you have is as a service business, it's top of mind awareness, right? Because someone gets a car, like I've got a Jeep Rubicon, right? One of the first things I did was I actually had a client here in Wichita called Eagle ICT, which did graphics. They sell graphics all over the country. We just happened to be a client of mine. So I took my Rubicon there and I got some graphics. And then I wanted the windows tinted, right? But I didn't know, of course you have all those people who try to do it yourself with bubbles and it peels off. And, you've seen those horror stories. But I wanted my car to look different. And what's interesting about what you're doing is making sure that your current customers know what else you do. I mean, when a brand asks me, well, what can I do to expand our market share? I always ask them, make sure they're clear on who their ideal client is, who are the influencers in their area, and how do you do four things? How do you expand your influence? How do you generate lists? How do you generate leads? And how do you improve sales? And I guess if I had to add a fifth one in there, it's how do you improve operations, which is just following your systems. I know when franchise systems are struggling, I always go back and say on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you utilizing the tools? So think about the tools that you're offering. What are some of the tools that you offer your franchisees? I mean, obviously you have an annual conference coming up, but what else do you do to ensure that they're all taking advantage of the tools you have?
Well, first it starts with the very basic. It's sales, marketing, and operations. I mean, and probably not in that order. It's probably marketing, sales, and then operations is really what it is because you get into marketing, brings the leads in, and how do you handle them? How do you follow up with them? How do you explain to customers and make them like you and trust you so they can come in and visit you or you can visit them? But the next step would be, the sales. Sales process is talking about the product and don't tell them what it is or how it's made. Tell them what it does for you.
Right.
Like, this is what you're going to get out of it. And so when they understand and they see it and they feel it and they love it, now it's going to be easier for them to say which product. Have an option-based program. Do you want this one, this one, this one? What's best for you? Most people like this. Now you're going to tell them about the product, and they're going to probably buy it. If it's an expensive product, you might want to offer a financing for it, so it makes it easy for them. No reason to say no. Once they actually are buying it, the key is to really do good operations, good service. Make sure you do the job right. Show them the job while it's being done. After it's done, make sure they see they got what they wanted. And then from that point, it's just, okay, what about the other things that they may want? Now, if you have a business that has multiple sales categories, you could talk to them about, you got a really cool car. What about if we do this? And what about if we do that? And what's important to you? Oh, I really wanted this. Okay. And by the way, do you have a home? We could do the same thing for your home and your home windows or your business that we could do on the car. We can give you privacy protection, keep it cooler inside, more comfortable, make it look nice. So these are the things you want to present to your customers. Now, you can't do it all at once, like I just told you here.
Right, right.
It's a conversation about what they're interested in, what they want, and how you can fill those gaps, those voids that they're looking for. And you know what? We're in a niche business, so you can't get that everywhere. So it makes it really attractive for them to want to deal with a company like ours.
Yeah, well, that's one of the advantages of Tint World. I mean, you're looking at mapping out the customer journey from a suspect to a prospect to a qualified lead to a customer to an advocate, right? That gives you referral sources. And it's really looking at that holistically. And, one thing I want to anchor for the listeners here today is, you're selling the result. You're not selling the product or service. So whenever I do a workshop or keynote and on business growth, I always ask the audience, I say, okay, why does someone do business with you? And usually they say things like 24-hour access or high quality products or 15 years experience. And I always tell them, if what you're talking about is about you, your company name, your products or your services or your process, it's a feature. And in order to convert a feature to a benefit, you use the words which means or so what. So if someone says, what's the benefit of Tilt? Well, which I know you guys don't do it. You say, well, we've got a wide selection. Well, really, so what are which means? So what means is they can get customized things that help them feel better. So the benefits are the emotional aspect, the result, just like you said. Like if you go to the Home Depot and we went and bought a 1/2-inch drill, we don't want a 1/2-inch drill bit. We want a 1/2-inch hole. When people come, they don't want tint. They want, a customized vehicle and to have privacy. And again, with my house, I've got windows on the west side of my house here, and they're tinted. It's because I want to protect the home and protect the furniture, right? It's not about the tint. And I think that's one of the things that you guys have done really well with your brand is helping your franchisees understand how to have those conversations and then how to generate and beyond that.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, the benefit they're going to get out of the product. It's not this drill. It's this many horsepower, this many things.
Yep.
It's shaped this way. It looks this way. It's great color. But really, ultimately, what it does, it actually easily allows you to drill a hole faster and better than any other tool out there. And that's really why it's the best. That's kind of really what they're going to get out of it. What they're looking for is the result of what the product or service is doing for them. And, it's the same thing. And you got to spread that. If you want to build a business, when you want to have people working for you, they have to believe that same thought, that same process, that same momentum. Otherwise, you're just a single person trying to do it. So spreading your vision and your skills throughout your team, making them all become leaders. Leaders build leaders. And if we can do a job like that, we can scale and grow. But if it's all, don't do anything, tell me when you're ready and I'll come and do it. Well, now you're disabling them. And I don't do it with my children, and I don't do it with my employees. I don't do it with my friends. I empower my friends to be as much as they can.
No, I agree. I mean, the brands that I've seen successful like yours with the enormous growth you've had is it really comes down to creating a culture where of caring and appreciation, which you guys have. And then it comes to leadership and management and team building and, everything down to the staff, to the customer experience. And, at the end of the day, I always tell people the fundamentals don't change. Yes, buyer behaviors have changed, products change, but at the end of the day, if you're taking care of your customer, they'll do business with you. And I know that with some franchise brands, well, not some, I'd say every franchise brand, you can tell me whether you agree or not. The franchisor wants the franchisees to follow their proven systems, which includes the culture and how they communicate. And the franchisee, if they're new and they're unexperienced in the franchise model, they might think, well, gee, I bought this franchise. Why aren't you sending more business? Why aren't you doing more on the national side to bring in business? And I'm always brought in as a third-party endorsement to say, look, follow your systems, take personal accountability for your results, and here are strategies that you can do. I mean, are you getting video testimonials? Are you getting Google reviews? Are you building relationships with your centers of influence? Are you resurrecting business with people who've already done business with you that may have needs for other things? And it's the same when I speak to a QSR or fast casual full service dining. I'm always like, well, when was the last time you mentioned catering? And, none of the franchisees raised their hand. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that's a big part of your business. And the top successful people really look at those opportunities. And so when you look forward in this year going forward, is there anything new or exciting that you're doing with your brand that you'd like our listeners to know about?
Well, some of the things that we just in this past year focused on. Now, every stage of a franchise, for us, it was the stage of the first 50 stores. Really,
Right.
I was able to get to know them, love them. They were close to me. They got to deal more directly with me than ever. I got to about 50 and I started losing, some of that closeness, because you're really trying to run a system as well as support them. So you have
Right.
to have staff that's going to be as good as you are or better even to work with them. And then you start get to 150 where we're at now and like, wow, I don't really get the time with my franchisees that I love and I want to show them. I have my staff, I have to go through them. So there's these stages. And so because I feel like, you lose a little touch with them directly, I decided that it was time to put really good technology in place that they can see and measure what they're doing, what they're doing well, where the opportunities to improve are, their leads, their conversions, their cost per leads, their Google reviews, how many did you do in a week or a month? Are they up? Are they down? Basically a dashboard measuring, what their labor percentage of sales are so they can make sure they're not overspending. Because I don't want them to come to me and say, why am I not making money this month? Well, you hired 3 more people. You don't need that. You need these 3 people to do the work, and that'll get you here. So that coaching that I used to do one-on-one, I'm trying to automate and get into a dashboard. So when I have franchise operations teams that go and visit with them or even call them, they can see that at a far right there. What's most important also is that it benchmarks across the chain, because you can believe your franchise are only so much. After that, it's like, no, I don't think anybody's doing it. No, look where you rank across the chain.
Right.
Your average is here. Look what the average is. Your average cost of leads is here. You're not getting enough Google reviews. Your conversions are here. Maybe you got to work on your phone skills or on your customer upselling skills. And it's really just the simple numbers that let you believe it and know where do you have to go to achieve it. And sometimes that's the franchisor. Me, I got to tell you, a lot of the growth that I learned when I was a franchisee is I hung around with the top players and I became a top player. And so I said, how do you do this? And how do you do it? I wasn't big on, doing the book work. So I found one franchisee that had like 14 or 15 locations. I'm like, how do you do that with all these numbers? Like, I'm going crazy. And I had one guy that literally works on all the numbers from all the store and gives them a report. I'm like, I got to do that. So there's all kinds of ways to learn. And this is not about Tint World franchise. This is about franchising.
Right.
You are interested in being an entrepreneur. You got to take responsibility and find out what gets you charged up. And if you find the brand, the franchise brand that actually is going to give you that roadmap, you got to support them the way they're supporting you. And don't say what they don't do. Take what they do and optimize that and learn from the best of breed inside that brand. I think that's a really important thing to learn.
Yeah, I think it is too. I want to anchor some things too. So, scorecard, a dashboard, right? I know my first business was a painting company, and it was in the 1975, a long time before most of our listeners were born. And I had this business, and I generated $35,000 in sales that first year, and I was all excited, and I found out that in today's equivalent, it's about 300,000, right? But back then, I was 15 years old when I started my first business. I didn't pay taxes, didn't pay insurance. Hypothetically, I didn't know what I was doing. I bootstrapped everything, and then I grew, and then I had started a sporting goods company where I invented some products in the sporting goods industry. And I remember the first year I generated $1 million in sales. I was all excited. I went to my controller and I'm like, "Hey, I'm a millionaire." And she said, "Hold on there, Skippy. You sold $1 million. You're $150,000 in debt, and you took home $16,000 as an annual salary." And I'm like, "No way." And so then I had to learn all about cash flow and balance sheets and chart of accounts, and that the assets and liabilities and equity was my balance sheet, and that my profit and loss was my revenue and my expenses, and what my average transaction was, and what the frequency of purchase was. And so I had to learn all those things. And what I found, Charles, is people in business are good at one of 3 things, right? They're either good at making the product, they're good at marketing and sales, like you said, or they're good at leadership and operations. And so I always tell people, hire your weakness. Now, as a business owner, you need to know what your strength is. I speak to franchise brands. I was just on a episode with Empower Brands, and they've got 10 home services, multi-brand, private equity group, right? And they've got 10 service brands. And, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you have 1 brand or 10 brands. It comes down to those fundamentals that the business owner needs to know. What's the cost to acquire a customer? What's your profit on the first sale? What's the percentage of conversions? And what's the long-term value? And to me, that's really what it's about. It's even the same reason why I do Fordify, right? So I've been doing Fordify for years. I've had John Hewitt from Jackson Hewitt that, did all the way down to Yuri Geva, who's from Cookie Dough Plus, that has 10 units, right? He's just starting his franchise unit, and he's got 10 units, and he's all eager. And it's interesting because he doesn't know what he doesn't know, right? So because I've worked with people like you that have, over 100 units, all the way down to like Subway at 45,000 units, all the way down to a startup, at the end of the day, the fundamentals don't change. I mean, there's certain nuances and tweaks, but at the end of the day, take care of the customer, deliver value, build a strong team, and really look at what's the weakness, and there's no excuses nowadays. And I'm just curious, how are you incorporating AI in anything? I know you've got your dashboard to do your scorecards and to help communicate, which I think is amazing. I can't believe it. More brands don't do that. I work with a brand, they're bringing me in as a keynote speaker, and I'm like, well, let's look at your dashboards. What's your top 100? And they don't have it. I'm like, wow, that would really help. So I'm just curious, you got technology now, but are you guys using AI, or your franchisees using AI?
Well, we do have some AI enabled, which is a chatbot on the website, which we're now integrating with our lead gen so we can know and map it all together. That's being optimized. But we had to get our tech stack right first. Once the stack is right and things integrated, we have a point of sale that reports into QuickBooks. We have a third-party accountant that works for all our franchises, that does the accounting work and advises them. We have 3 dashboards. We have our financial dashboard on each store, benchmark across the chain, so they know where they rank. We have a marketing dashboard, so we know all about what organic leads, paid leads, conversions, the journey of a customer comes into you, what the cost of conversion, how well they're doing. We have AI on the phone call, so we get a report now of every store, a benchmark showing, how well they're converting those calls from 1 to 10.
Right.
Are they 7 out of 10 or 8? So rather than having to listen to these calls, we're actually getting ratings from them. And so all that goes into the dashboard. So you got the financial, the marketing, and then the operational dashboard, which is really the result of everything that comes through. So that's what we've built. Now we're talking about doing more AI with interaction with customers, even with franchisees and franchisor. We're looking at those now. We're just very cautious to not really degrade anything we have going. We're looking best of breed in what other large companies and franchises are doing. But now that we have our tech stack really optimized, this year we're going to be testing out some of that AI stuff more than what we already have.
Yeah, I know that, as a keynote speaker, I speak at annual conferences. Usually it's a business growth or innovation or accountability or leadership, whatever the topic is. And I know that, about 3 years ago, I started doing presentations on AI, but not the way everybody was doing AI. I mean, they're all talking about the theory and what. I'm like, I don't care. I'm a business owner. Like, if this isn't going to help me expand my influence, is it going to help me generate leads, create content, or improve operations? I don't care. Like, I don't get seduced by technology. I don't want our listeners to get seduced by technology, but it's a tool. And I think there's pros and cons, right? It's like, I remember, and you're old enough to probably remember too. Remember before automated attendance, when you'd call a company, and when they first came out, those phone trees, everybody thought it was going to be, so smart and so great. So everybody press 1 for 2, press 1 for English, press 2 for this, and press 1 for English, and they don't speak English. I'm not being political here. I'm just telling you that, sometimes that happens. And people thought that was going to save them time, but it really hurt the customer experience, to where now, if you call and you get a real person, I'm not saying phone trees don't work. It just has to be congruent to the experience. There's absolutely nothing wrong. And I just did a bunch of work for Anytime Fitness for their brands. And, they're one of the largest, fitness, and now they've been combined with Self-Esteem Brands, and they just bought Orange Theory. And, they use technology, but one of the things they did on their research, and this isn't proprietary, is that people don't want to talk to people. So if they have a way of capturing a lead or generating a lead or learning without the person. So it's really, again, goes back to looking at the customer experience. Where can technology be used that enhances it, like the chatbot, like you're talking about, versus detracts it, versus those phone trees? And for me, I added a chatbot onto both my websites. I have Profit Results, which is on the screen here. That's my speaking business growth site. And then I have a digital marketing agency, because when I speak about digital marketing, CEOs like you say, all right, I don't want to do this crap. Will you do it? So we do, digital marketing. And I always resisted doing a chatbot, because I'm just like, you got to list out all the questions, and you got to list out all the answers, and you got to do all the branch learning. And what I found now with AI is I was able to create a chatbot by uploading all of our information about our company, researching on AI, and it created its own agent. So now it knows everything about me. So you can actually go to my website and just interact with an AI agent that's using all the information it knows about me, because I'm all over the internet. And it's amazing, because I'm like, I didn't train it. So you can say, does he know anything about AI, or how many franchise brands, or has he ever spoken here? And the AI actually answers it. And what's cool was the AI chatbot that I was able to make is it pays attention to the conversation to when it makes sense to say, hey, would you like to talk to Ford or to capture leads? So it doesn't just ask for their information right up front, it engages them and then it captures the information and it creates leads. So it really has been a positive. And so I think that, right now with the buyer behaviors have changed, technology is a great thing, but basically AI is as a toaster on autocomplete and it can make up things and it can do things wrong. And so while everybody jumps on the bandwagon, I also say, look, when everybody goes high tech, you need to stay high touch because that's where the relationships are. So I'm just curious, do you agree, disagree? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I'm trying to do it in a seamless way. I don't want it to be too obvious that you're just turning over consumer service to a
Yeah.
bot. So what you're doing as well, you let it learn everything about you, so it's not giving arbitrary answers. It's giving more detailed answers, so it feels more relatable and good. So that's really what I was waiting for. It's only been about a year or so, maybe a year and a half, that it's starting to really come to fruition. And then, of course, now what platform do we use to plug it in? And what's the appropriate for each type of use. So, we're just now engaging into looking at that right now. Part of why I hired a marketing agency to actually review everything we've got going. Some of it is that they actually can write, blogs on your website for that matter. And you always got to be careful what it's going to do, what it's going to hurt. But the fact is, the more organic it feels to a consumer, the better that I think the results will be.
Yeah, I always tell brands, come up with a list of that. Like, so something you could do is like if you send out an email to all your franchisees and you say, send me a list of the top 25 questions you get asked most frequently. And so they're going to give you, everybody's going to fill it out. And then you take that into AI and you say, based on this research that I did with our brand, give us a list of the top short form videos that we should create that answer these questions and make them SEO optimized. Well, then all of a sudden it gives you all the scripts and it creates that library of content that really does help with the rankings because at the end of the day, people go to Google to find answers. They're not going to necessarily buy a product. And the search engines are all changing too, because when everybody can create content, and you'll see it even changing now. If you type into Google something, the first result that comes up is now Gemini, which is Google's AI, trying to give you the answer without actually sending you to the website. So it's taken the lead generation and making it secondary, where they're trying to answer the person's question up front. So if you can claim that spot by being someone who has that content, that traffic then can flow to you. So definitely the buyer behaviors have changed. I think it's great, your perspective. If you think about some of the challenges that your franchisees have, what are one or two top challenges that you've identified that they're now facing?
Well, there's different categories. So, some of the challenges I face is when they come in to buy the franchise, they want to use none of their money and they want to borrow all the money they can. And to me,
Yeah.
that's like, you're weighing down your expenses with high interest rates too much. So that already starts at an error. So I really tried to dial in on that, but it's really difficult sometimes. It's a small percentage, but when they do, they just load themselves down. It takes longer to get profitable. Another one would be when they come in, they want to pay as little as possible for their staff. We have a specialized industry. We want to pay the employees the right amount, level them up, and good employees and good long-lasting employees. We don't have a cheap, employee base. We have, really qualified people that actually do certain jobs on vehicles that are specialized in that. So having a good culture, a good brand, good support, good working relationship, and pay appropriately for those high profitable services that they should be getting paid for. So those are some of the things that build your brand that allows you to scale to more locations. Now it's not a big problem, but these are little problems that I see happen along the way. They get caught up into, why don't I get more leads? I thought
Right.
I was just not going to have to do anything and stand behind the counter. No, there's marketing that the brand does for you, which is probably the heavy lifting, about 60, 75%. But that 25 to 30% that you're going to do with your local efforts, that's really what's going to really multiply all the efforts that you are as part of the franchise. We're not there serving it for them. We're giving them all the tools and the majority of the heavy lifting and allowing them to build their local communities so they can build their local brand. So these are all really important things that it takes time to build this. And so we scaled pretty quickly in the last. I mean, we doubled the chain from about 70 stores in the last 3 or 4 years. So bringing that many people on and trying to get all of them in the right mindset to grow is a difficult task. We're getting better at it, and we're being successful at it. But at the same time, these are the things that we look at. That how do we get better at it? How do we automate this? And that's where these technology dashboards come in. How we can measure it faster, so we can help them quicker. Where are they weak at? And then I want to know, like, what's the average across the chain? What's the add-on? How many are they adding on, 1 or 2 items per ticket, or are they just not adding on anything? We want to know, because that means they're not really communicating properly with the customer. So we want to make sure that we're benchmarking everything, so we know what's appropriate and where we can level them up. The quicker we know about it and they know about it, the quicker we can put it to action. But if we don't know, then we don't know how to train them, because we don't know what they need first. And that's really important.
Yeah, so it's like the dashboard. I mean, when I had the sporting goods company, my controllers came to me and said, "Look, you don't understand your chart of accounts, your balance sheet, your income statement, your inventory turns, all this stuff." And it was all Greek to me. And he said, "It's kind of like driving your car with your foot on the gas with the windshield painted black. You don't know where you're going." And financial reports give you it's like looking in the rearview mirror. It shows you where you've been. And so you use those financial reports to help make better decisions for where you want to go. And once I understood that, then my businesses became a lot more profitable, and I grew multiple companies up. But I had to really understand the pros and cons of all that. And when it comes down to growing a business, I always, people, they'll interview me, or when I speak at a group, typically they'll hire me for an opening keynote for their conference. And then the brand hires me for business development training, because they want someone to help them sell more franchises. And it's very hard to get leads, and you know how competitive it is selling franchises. So they bring me in for business development. And so I always say, look, don't complicate this. Don't get seduced by technology. At the end of the day, there's only 4 ways you're going to grow. Number 1, get more high value customers. You don't want more customers. You want high value customers. What do you make the money on? What makes the most sense to focus? Number 2, how do you increase the average transaction? And that's what you just said your dashboard does, is it shows you what their average ticket is and are they doing add-ons. So how do you increase the average transaction? Number 3, repeat and referral sales. So tracking the average ticket over a period of time, average sales for a customer over a period of time, as well as the referrals. How many referrals are you getting? Because the shortest path to acquiring a customer is a referral, right? So are you leveraging referrals? Have you created a referral culture? Have you conditioned your team to ask for referrals in a way that makes sense at the happiness moment? And then number 4, improving operations, which of course you've done with this whole overhaul of your tech stack. So that's why you've got all the components in place. And if you're listening now, this is also the audio for the podcast. So you've been listening to Charles Bonfiglio. He's a franchise founder and a CEO of Tint World. And of course, you can check him out at tintworld.com, connect with him on social media and stuff. So in closing, what idea or tip would you have to share with our listeners, or anything that we forgot to talk about?
Well, we covered a lot, and we weren't very targeted on any particular item, but I know that you had presented to me that this is entrepreneurs, large PE firms, large franchise brands, and we all are the same in some fashion. We're trying to invest into a company or a business to grow. So really, it's a matter of getting the knowledge that you need to grow your sector. What are you doing? If you're an entrepreneur that wants to get into business, my roadmap was finding a franchise and learning how to learn from the franchise. Eventually, I felt I could do it better. And then I bought a brand with 6 locations and converted to a franchise, because it's what I dreamed of as a kid, what I wanted to build. So I had this momentum in my mind of what I wanted to get to, but I wasn't able to get to that before I started with, let me learn business, let me learn franchising. That gives me the nuts and bolts of how to really put this together. So you have to find your passion, whatever that may be. Franchising is a great opportunity for someone who's wanting to find their roadmap.
Well, thank you so much, Charles, for being here today.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here. Yeah.
All right. So thanks for tuning in to Fordify Live, where we're all about accelerating your business growth. Until next time, keep innovating, keep growing, and keep fortifying your success.
Thank you for tuning in to Fordify Live. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the Business Growth Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. We air weekly at 11 a.m. Central Time. So until next week, keep pushing the boundaries and never stop growing.